All right.
Starting with the COVID update, let's just take a look at what's happening. We had a bit of a lull this week, and last week, so that's nice. I mean, still crazy, but new cases about 65,000 almost, and new deaths under 1,000 for the second week in a row. But I think these are the first 2 weeks, and before that it was 30 weeks in a row that we were over 1,000. So
Right. And
nice.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, keep in mind, some of this is seasonal regardless. We are in a time when more people are outside a little more than
Right.
inside. Uh,
Yeah.
and we might get a little more lull in the summer as well.
Yeah.
But even those statistics aren't really keeping track of long COVID and how many people are already suffering devastating effects from COVID. So we can't let up our guard on it.
We
Right.
absolutely can't, especially as like the World Health Organization is trying to change the wording of airborne. Like they're still obfuscating what's actually happening and how it's transmitted, right? They're bringing in their consultants to come up with some new speak about how it's transmitted.
And we'll have to dive into that article next week, or maybe not Wednesday, not Sunday, Wednesday. But friend of the show, help me out here.
Day.
Yeah, she just wrote another article about it, getting into some of the language changes, but it's no longer an airborne virus. It's do you know the term?
Well, they're still trying to figure out how to say it. It was like it travels. We're trying to think. I mean, remember, because we showed this last week, that they're trying to come up with terms that everybody can understand. It's like, it's just ridiculous, totally ridiculous. But again, they're trying to cover their asses because obviously it's bad news for them if they admit what we've known since February of 2020, which they said by accident for one moment that it travels through the air. There was a bit of good news, though, a possible hopeful news, right? That a little dab of Neosporin under your nose and just inside of it can help prevent transmission. Right?
Absolutely. So there was an article, I mean, a big study, mostly focusing on mice, but then they did an after study that included humans as well, showed it has the same prophylactic, which is preventative
strategy.
Yeah. Effect.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the danger is some people are very allergic to Neosporin in the nose, and that's,
it can be like I guess a dermatological response. And then the other possible issue is it is antibacterial, and how often should people, we already have antibiotics that aren't as effective anymore because we've sort of overprescribed antibiotics. Also, because, I mean, that's part of it. I know there's like a group of people who say it's because we've overprescribed antibiotics. There's a group of people who say it's because everything's sterile now and people are so germ conscious and worried. And then there's another group that says, or another possibility, which is when people don't finish their whole course of an antibiotic, it actually allows the bacteria to sort of learn and grow and thrive, which has made people more resistant to antibiotics. But anyway.
And I'm no doctor, scientist, which is shocking.
But you should go ahead and make up
a lot
some
of people
anyway.
But apparently part of it has to do with, it's not really even that important that it's an antibacterial at this point. Like there's some theories behind it are just that it's blocking the uptake of the virus regardless, because normally an antibacterial doesn't defeat a virus. Like it's antibacterials are building up your immune system kind of in localized way.
Well, they're against bacterial infections, not viral infections. Right.
So who knows, but it's a promising study. And even with the allergic component to it, it's possible they can develop something that doesn't have the allergic component that still works for people. So, any good news we can get, we're going to try to share it. So.
Yeah, because our COVID update these days is now sort of meshing with our bird flu update, which has now reached 33 different states, farms in 33 different states. They're finding it in milk. And, as Eric Topol says, it's not good, folks. I'm not worried about H5N1 transmission to humans yet, but the USDA pathetic lack of transparency, how long it took for the genomes to be released, lack of testing, asymptomatic cattle, all detracts from the confidence that they're espousing, right?
Right. And all the lessons we learned from COVID
show you that we're going to.
The government got away with it.
Yeah.
They've basically gotten a pass on it all. So, we're getting lied to again. So
listen, they didn't even upload their data. They kept it hidden for a long time. And apparently, for years, they have not been submitting their data to the World Health Organization or to global databases. So, because what they were worried about was obviously that's going to have an effect on their sales, right? If you know that that's happening. So they tried to hide it because they want to make sure they get as much money from those tainted cows and their milk as possible.
Yeah. So they're now easing back on the language already. And Rick Bright caught this, but I had both screenshots, but it's not worth all the screenshots. But basically they're talking about pasteurization, and the FDA had said initially last week, pasteurization continually proven to inactivate the virus, basically.
Right.
And so this week their language changed to it's very likely to inactivate the virus.
Though no studies have been done.
None.
Okay.
So that's what we're dealing with in your safety level from bird.
And it is also airborne, which they are trying not to.
Not airborne, Lila. I'm sorry, I got to correct you. It's air friendly.
It transmits through the air.
Yeah.
According to the McKinsey WHO's new language guidebook. But anyway, listen, we can all rest assured everything is fine. No need to worry. Leana Wen is on the job.
I think we're good.
Why we shouldn't panic if bird flu becomes the next pandemic. So
why my kids will be chugging milk immediately once it becomes in the milk. Like that's Leana Wen. She is the epitome, and she rose to prominence and got the trust of the world because she was actually the most critical person initially. And then they bought her and she flipped overnight to being a minimizer.
Yep.
That's it. She didn't suddenly study the science and think, oh, well, COVID's not a big deal. She just started writing articles about why my kid getting COVID a bunch of times is good and why,
And she's basically been MIA, for 8 months or something? Because I think she was battling whatever she wants to call it. It was, she had COVID, then it was walking pneumonia, no big deal. And whatever.
She was battling having no soul is what she was battling.
Yeah.
And she still clearly has no soul.
I hope this doesn't get us taken off the air, but I wish that everybody would reap what they sow. And if anybody should be getting long COVID, it should be people who minimized this pandemic, who helped get everybody back to school and back to work, and is responsible probably for tens of thousands of deaths and way more. So, karma.
And good old Twitter shut down my parody account. Dr. Leana Knows When to, I don't even remember what it was called, to take the money or something like that. But I mean, it's weird that, the accounts that get kicked off Twitter are really COVID, Twitter wants COVID to not be a big deal. So you get a lot of people booted for COVID stuff.
Yeah. Yep. We still have some shows that they call it medical misinformation because we said, do the vaccine or don't. I have, but do it or don't, but definitely wear a mask indoors. And they said that was medical misinformation. Lovely.
Yeah. So here comes bird flu, and all the anti-vaxxer, anti-maskers have pushed their agenda that the whole world's, Bill Gates wants to put chips in your brain and all that stuff to such a level that we're getting measles and mumps vaccines are going down, and now bird flu is going to hit, and people are going to be like, oh, not this time. You're not going to make me stay home from the restaurant for 2 weeks.
No lockdown for me.
No, those 4 years of suffering I went through. No, you didn't go to restaurants as much for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. unless you were Gavin Newsom.
When you put all this mental health stuff, it's so easy for the people to say lockdowns caused all this stuff.
Yep.
And it's completely ignored how many people lost family and friends. And
Yep.
then how many people with long COVID now seeing the government betray them and leave them,
Yeah.
like, and they're on their
Financially
own. Think of all the
insecure. Yeah.
stressors and triggers, and
Yep.
to put it on lockdowns is just ridiculous. I mean, if you
yeah.
take an honest look at it, I don't think anybody really would do that if they really looked at the studies behind it.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I can't remember his name now, but we showed quite a few. He was like deals with child suicide. And really very early on, when they started pushing this, lie that the lockdowns caused all of the mental stress and suicides, and he had documented all the data that it actually didn't, they went down. But it doesn't matter. Once the lie is out there, it's like learning loss, and they talk about learning loss, but they don't talk about the fact that when the charts that they are referring to started in like 2014, so like when the ACT test scores started going down, that predated COVID by 6 years. Right. So like, yeah,
we're lockdown fanatics, even though, that's not even what either of us have ever really advocated for. I mean, mostly just mask. Let's get people masking. Let's get testing more common. Get people staying home when they're sick. Maybe you don't have the kids that are the biggest spreaders all in a room.
3 feet apart, not 6 feet apart.
Hey, kids, we're all going to cough in each other's mouths today.
Yeah.
Maybe stop doing that a little bit.
Yeah.